in which says the greatest trick the devil ever played on mankind was convincing mankind that he didn't exist. And nothing, in my opinion, summarizes what's happening currently in the world of real estate when it comes to brokerages than that statement right there.
This is Consume, the podcast for real estate agents who are tired of hearing the same old industry stuff and want to experience something completely different. I've been in the coaching space, and I hate the term coaching in real estate just because I don't know, it skews me out. It's one of those things that I'm sort of like, anybody can call themselves a coach. There's no actual accreditation to any of it. It all kind of seems like wishy-washy bullshit to me. But let me tell you a little bit about why I think, for me, the coaching industry doesn't work for agents. So if you think about coaching in real estate is very similar to the healthcare industry. So the healthcare industry is built on symptom treatment, never treating the cause. And the reason is because that's where all the money is made. It's made in symptom treatment. If you go to a doctor, you have high cholesterol, you are not feeling great, right? The first thing they're going to do is give you a pill. They're going to say, hey, here's a statin, you're going to take this, lower your cholesterol. They might broach, you also might want to, eat a little better or do some exercise, but that's not going to be part of a plan for you moving forward. Why? Because if they really dove into helping you on dealing with the cause of the problem, then you wouldn't need them anymore. So the system is designed and built all around symptom treatment. And coaching and the real estate model itself is the same way. Everything in coaching is built around symptom treatment. And that is because it keeps you dependent on the coach. So fine, I get it. I understand it. Look, there's great coaches out there that do wonderful work with people. They help people. They do all kinds of fantastic stuff. With that being said, at the same time, no one talks about a lot of the emotional components and the things that come into context with working with agents, helping them be better at what they do. So I'll give you an example. I had a client I was talking to the other day, and they started off by explaining to me they were super frustrated by this particular client they had, because they had explained to that client that if they priced at a certain price point, that it wasn't going to work for them. And the client wanted to go ahead and price it at some ridiculous price point anyway. They went ahead, they did that. And the agent, now 6 months into this listing, was telling me that they were so upset because these people didn't listen. And now these people are looking at them for answers as to why the property's not selling. And they were talking about, what are the things that I should be saying to them to get them to understand that it's not me. And, they're really frustrated. And I feel like I should do something. Right. And I keep hearing this. I feel like I should do something. And I'm thinking, okay, you should do what though? Right. Because the part that you had any chance to do happened already. That window was gone 6 months ago. So as I started to explain to my client what was happening for their client, I watched this sense of relief slowly begin to wash over the person I was talking to. And as much as it pained me to say what I was saying to them, which I'm going to explain here in a second, it also made me realize that so many of the people that I work with, and I think people in the coaching industry work with, so many people misunderstand what their job and what the role is. We get so over-indexed and so over-invested in the job itself that we don't do a great job at stepping backwards. And that's why having someone to talk to, having a coach, having someone to have a 30,000-foot perspective is beneficial. But with that being said, what you do with that information is important. So here's what I explained. The single biggest mistake that I see agents make in the world today in working with consumers is that we don't set expectations up front. One of the best behavioral psychologists in the world is Cesar Millan. And people always say, Lance, Cesar Millan is a dog trainer. He's not a behavioral psychologist. And I beg to differ, because whenever they interview Cesar Millan, they always say, well, Cesar Millan, you're the best dog trainer in the world. And he always stops people. And he's like, I'm not a dog trainer. And they're like, yes, you are though. You're a dog trainer. That's what you do. You train dogs. And he's like, no, I don't. He said, I train people. You see, dogs have hundreds of thousands of years baked in their DNA on how they act and behave. It's people that mess up the dog. And it's very interesting because in a lot of different ways too, one of the things that he shares is this idea that in order for you to have a healthy, calm, happy relationship with your dog, you have to have rules, boundaries, and limitations. You have to set expectations up front. And so what this led me into understanding is, well, what is the cause? So if most coaching these days is focused on symptom treatment, which is what is the perfect fix? Let's talk about it like this. Coaches are going to listen to that client. They're going to hear that client say to them, here's the problem, here's the situation, what do I do? And they're going to focus on, well, okay, so here's what you need to explain to them. And they're going to give them the script. They're going to give them the playbook, the perfect thing to say, right? Well, we're going to have to start a remarketing campaign for you now because of X, Y, and Z. Or, you know what, you should do a weekly touch base with a digital thing that shows how many clicks they've had on. And that's fine, but that's not addressing the problem. The problem is how the agent feels. And how the agent feels starts with, what was the cause? The cause was we didn't set an expectation up front, and we didn't really help the client understand very quickly that there's freedom of choice. There are choices that that person is going to make. There are things that they are going to do that are beneficial, and there are things that they are going to do that might be harmful in the long run. But we didn't actually set that. What we did was we tried our best to convince them of something. That is a problem. And the problem is because it sets up an us versus them dynamic. So when you look in real estate, when most tension comes into the relationship between the agent and the client, it's because of the fact that there's tension. That tension is surmounted into the client is at the third most stressful time of their life, right behind death and job loss, with the single largest financial asset they have. And the agent has spent most of their time from the first meeting trying to convince this person that they are good at what they do and they're trying to show their value, right? So why am I doing little bunny ears with around the word value? Well, because value in real estate is bullshit. It has been for years. This idea that the agent has to be showing their value to everybody and explaining to somebody, well, here's my value to you, and I have to demonstrate my value. And if you sent them something, you have to show your value. Did it have your value in it? Does it show your value? It's nonsensical. Why? Because in essence, we really all have the same value. As an agent, my job is to help navigate a process with somebody. And when we don't really look at who we are, what we do, and what our role in the relationship is, the consumer then doesn't understand what our role in the relationship is. And because of that, it is the single biggest thing that A, keeps us stuck, B, creates additional really problems within how we engage with people and actually how we process things ourselves. And worst of all, it really continues to perpetuate and foster this notion of what our real estate agent is, because that's where consumers have already gotten off on the wrong foot.
The feedback that consumers have, this like raw, unfiltered feedback that consumers have, is pretty much the opposite of what every coach, I know your coaching is different, but what most coaches are saying is like, just do more marketing, just do this, blah, blah, blah. Right. It's like, more marketing for what? Like, everyone is saturated with marketing. I love Instagram for like dog videos and pictures of my friends and their kids. It has been ruined for me by marketing. Like, I have to mute every single real estate agent I know, which is a lot, because they don't know how to market. It's just throwing like new listing, new listing, new listing. It's like, I don't care. This is not what I come here for. So please stop.
Fascinating actual statistic that says that Instagram and Facebook, that you have a 1% chance of reaching organic leads through Instagram and Facebook if you're an agent based on your target audience. 1%, right? 1%. And then when you look at YouTube, that is 62% on average. And yet, what do coaches tell people all the time? And what is the industry constantly promoting? Instagram, Facebook. And then that's where you end up with all these agents running around going into, these hot new trends. So we'll talk about this because I'm going to blow this one up, and I guarantee you we're going to get hate mail for this. So do you remember that trend that was happening for a while where they were doing those little figurines, like those little fake action figures? You could do a fake action figure of yourself. Did you see this on Instagram? Okay, cool.
Yeah.
So there was one that had, and I won't name the brokerage because it was a team that had done this, where they posted each one of the team members as this figurine. And in each one of these little figurines in your action figure pack was 4 things.
something that referenced the brokerage. So there was like a book, like a notebook that had the brokerage name on it, or like a sticker that had the brokerage. Okay, so they all had that. Then they had their like thing they do for fun. So it was like a golf club or a tennis racket or like sneakers. A lot of golf clubs and a lot of tennis rackets, by the way, in a bunch of them. Then it had their favorite drink. So we had like martinis, chocolate martinis. We had like highballs. And what was amazing to me was I looked at this and the first thing I thought was, what did we just tell people? Well, when you looked at each one of these, it said, oh, but I forgot the best part. It also had their like whatever the device they were on, their laptop, their iPad, their phone. So what did all this say? I'm constantly out on the golf course or on the tennis courts. I drink all day long. And basically I live on a mobile device because I'm never actually doing anything of actual work. I was like,
yeah,
you just fit the stereotype.
Yeah. My figurine, I mean, I would hope that they would put the baking part instead of the competitive shooting part. Cause I feel like that would really change the vibe of my figurine. Just going to say that, like, hi, I'm going to bake you a cake with that in it. But no, I feel like that would change the vibe of my figurine and maybe people wouldn't really like it. But yeah, it's like, I care kind of what you do outside of work. Like if I enjoy golfing, then maybe I would enjoy golfing with you and talking with you. But it's like, if that's what you're putting front and center, that I like to have some cocktails and I like to hit the golf course, how much time does that leave for working other than, on my, like sitting in the golf cart on my fourth, whatever scotch and soda. I don't know what people drink out. I don't know if people drink out there. Maybe they're just having like 17 beers.
Running around. Have you seen the ones where they run around the office all day with like this little microphone? Like, hey, Cindy, what's the best book you read this summer? Hi, Barbara, what's the best book you read this? Like nobody gives a shit. Nobody cares.
Can I also tell you how much I hate that whole trend, period, of the talking into the tiny little lav mic? I'm like, you are a fuckwit. Stop it. Stop it. You look like a fuckwit. Put that thing down. If you like, don't talk in the tiny microphone. I don't care who you are. I don't care if you're selling real estate. I don't care what you're doing. Put the tiny microphone down. That's a lav mic. That should be clipped on you if you're going to use it at all. Otherwise, put it away.
It is an astounding thing. I mean,
the industry has just been like reduced to just like the dumbest trends and like trying to get attention and vibes and whatever. And it's like, it's going to get you attention possibly, but I don't think it's going to get you the right kind of attention. If I was not in this industry, which I know I am, so I'm biased and it's hard for me to remove that bias. But if I was not in this industry and I'm scrolling on Instagram and I see someone talking about like their favorite book from the summer, I'm not going to go, you know what? I absolutely am going to call this woman and talk to her about real estate. No.
We as an industry on the whole have to stop using the term value. Value is a dumb term. Here's what I mean. If you've been in this real estate game for even more than 5 minutes, at some point, maybe thousands of times, someone has told you, well, you need to show your value. What really matters to customers and consumers out there is showing them your value. Well, I want to make this very clear because it still boggles my mind when I hear about this. As a person in the business, as someone that works with consumers and for consumers, if I'm surrounded by people telling me all the time that I have to show my value, did you show your value? If you did something, it has to show value. Anything that you do has to show value. You go to a listing presentation, you have to make sure they see your value. Did you send them something? If you emailed them, that email has to include something of value. And, I get frustrated by this because behaviorally, if you tell someone 1,000 times during the course of the year that no matter what they're doing, they have to show their value, inherently what you're telling somebody is, you have no value. And because you have no value, you have to be creating all these different ways to show somebody that you have value. And in and of itself, fundamentally, I call bullshit on that. I just don't think it's very fair or an accurate depiction of anything related to what will serve a consumer in the long run. So let's dig in. Your value on the whole is derived by you as the individual and what you can do for and with somebody. I say all the time that I believe in our business, our job is to be of useful purpose and service to others. We are in a service business, and this notion that we are in sales is also complete BS. We're not in sales. I can prove it every time. Houses don't require
sales professionals. They don't. And here's why. If you take a house, you put it on the market, and you put the price really low, what's going to happen to it? It's going to sell. So we're not in sales. It's not our job to sell the home. It's our job to be in a service-based industry, providing a service to the consumer to help them navigate the process, the challenges, make informed decisions, and be a supportive structure to them in a process, right? So that is one fundamental thing. So what happens from the industry perspective is that the industry makes all of its money, for the most part, by getting agents to believe that they need to understand the next great thing that they need to know in order to continue to remain relevant and be successful. And a lot of that is derived by explaining to people, here are the different ways that you show your value. And if you talk to consumers and ask them what they think is of value to agents or about agents, what they'll most often tell you is their knowledge base. And so their knowledge base is a supportive function that helps improve the quality of service that they can give them. Right? And their knowledge base and their experience is what comes into play during the course of the transaction. And that inherently is a value. But the problem is that when you're educated in the industry, you're being educated to show value the same way every other person you're competing with is being shown how they can establish their value or show their value. And, that shows up in a couple different ways. We see that when agents start talking about, well, when I send things out in my email, the email has to have something of value. So I can't just check in with somebody and say, hi, how are you? Because that's weird. If you ask an agent, oh, why don't you just reach out and see how they're doing? Well, that's weird. Why? Being a human being is weird? Okay, fine. There's problem number one. The concept of having something of value is derived or driven into us by us having to engage with somebody in a fashion that is most often not really of actually any value. So agents are told when you reach out and send an email, that email has to have something of tremendous value. Example being, if you're going to email them, they need to know that you can do a property CMA for them so they know what their home is worth. Well, is that of value? No. It's not. Why? Because they can go to 18 different websites right now and get a ballpark idea of what their home is worth. Now, someone is going to send me hate mail right now, and they're going to tell me, well, Lance, but that's just not true because I know, and, the Zestimate is always wrong, and the Zestimate's wrong. But when you go and look at 3 other sites and you can get a median of between those different 3 sites, we're now talking about something that I can get a pretty decent idea to what my home is worth. In fact, now with the benefits of AI, I will tell you right now, I can go into a chat GPT, I can put in my property and tell it to run a CMA and a comparative market analysis for things that are actively on the market. And I can tell it the parameters of what I'm looking for. And guess what? It does a pretty good job. In fact, based off of the research that I did, it gets within a plus minus of about 3 to 4% on average of property value in either direction. So again, we're getting pretty tight, and the science behind comping a property is not nearly as compelling as it used to be. But when we think about showing somebody value in what we do and how we operate, we're being taught and trained that our value is dependent upon what we can do for somebody. And most often now, that is something that is readily available. So I want to encourage you to think of it differently. I say that agents need to begin to show differentiation, not value. Why? We really all have the same value. At the end of the day, fundamentally, we kind of all have the same value. And, it's similar to when I talk to consumers and I say, well, are you interviewing agents because you're thinking about selling your home? Yes, I'm interviewing agents. And I say, well, did they discuss their marketing? Oh, yes. And how much time? Oh, they spent a ton of time discussing their marketing. All kinds of time in their marketing. And, it's interesting to me because when you dig in with a consumer and talk about that, what you'll typically find is there's a lot of time spent explaining the value and importance of that agent's marketing. And the reality of it is, that's not a value proposition. It's just not. It's something that agents believe they need to explain because it shows their value. But the truth of the matter is, all I got to do is ask the consumer, well, you're thinking of buying another property. Where did you go to look for property? And what do I most often hear? Homes.com, Zillow, Trulia, one of the online portals. And I look at them and go, okay, well, my marketing presentation's done. It is, because at the end of the day, that's where the marketing is. That's where most people are finding your property, right? And so again, the game now isn't, oh, I can have you in the Beijing Times. I can, get the international buyer presence for you. That's not a real thing anymore. It's mostly now what I can do for you as the consumer that's going to help create points of differentiation so that you see that what I do and how I work with you is different than what you've experienced or what you thought of. It's incredibly important these days to have an opportunity to meet people where they're at, but also demonstrate to them based on their current needs, especially in a service-based business, where your differentiation lies compared to what their perception, their idea of a consumer experience would be within real estate. How do you feel about private listings? And let me just explain to you what I mean by that. That means that there would be let's just say there was an area of the world in which listings could be made private, and that your property as a seller could be put there so that only agents within that brokerage or only people on that one particular portal could see that listing for a period of time. Nobody else publicly could see it. What would you think about that?
Yeah, I think it's an interesting point. I think it differs whether you're a buyer or a seller, in my opinion. If I'm a seller, that might be something that I would be open to, because if there is some quick wins or good fit on the buying side for me as the seller, where we're keeping it kind of private and curated, I like that. But as a buyer, I think that I don't know how that would drive any value for me specifically, unless, I guess, and now that I'm saying that, unless I am the buyer and I have exclusive access to a property that I love, I guess would be the positive from a buying perspective.
I think the hard part there becomes, how would you even know that was available? So let's go back to the seller side, because this is a big debate in real estate currently. On the seller side, yes, you would have the option for privatized. Do you think, though, that if you were trying to get the highest and best price for your property, do you feel that keeping it in a private area would get that for you?
No, I don't. On paper, I don't. I think it would have to be very situational and subjective. Hey, I have a very quick timeline that I need to meet here. Price isn't the most important thing to me. Maybe as a seller, because I know some people feel very strongly about actually the worth or the culture, or who is actually going to be buying my house from a personal perspective is important to people. But purely on price, absolutely not. It doesn't seem like that would be the way to get the highest price for your property.
Okay. Thank you, because I think that's gonna the whole bunch of people listening right now in their cars just drove off the road. Because that is one of the biggest debates. There are brokerages out there, who I will not mention, who are actively pushing to privatize listings, which is the way that it used to be before there was what was called clear cooperation, which means the multiple listing services and the boards would require you within a certain amount of time of taking a listing to put it on the MLS so that it would have fair and equal distribution so everybody could see the property.
Okay.
Brokerages now, one brokerage in particular is working diligently to privatize and create a private network, in essence, so that properties are then only seen by one brokerage or one portal, right, for a period of time before they would then go out to the public market. And the argument has always been made on their side that is because consumers should have the right to privatize a listing if they wanted to, and you can't tell a consumer what they can and can't do with their property. Sure, to be clear, you've always been able to privatize your listing. That's always been an option for you. So it's not something new. What I think the debate is, though, is that really is being done to benefit the brokerage and their financial investment to increase their transactions, right? Their transaction volume amongst themselves and drive more leads into their system. So is it in the best interest of consumers? I mean, you tell me, you're a consumer. Does that sound like it is in the best interest of a consumer?
It doesn't on a general level at all, in my opinion, right? Like maybe if I have a $20 million house and there's very, certain it has a golf course or what, like some crazy thing where it's only a very small aspect of the population that is going to want this house. Okay, fine. But from a general perspective, that would make no sense to me personally. And really that would say to me, hey, this brokerage is just looking to get both sides of this deal from a commission perspective.
And just to be clear, also, nobody until you just said it didn't know that you weren't selling a $20 million property on a golf course. You didn't have to give that away, by the way, right up front. But so
slightly less.
It's funny when you talk about partnership. Like, yes, I appreciate that idea of partnership, but also I am somebody who in my life has been paid for my expertise. And I also want somebody that I can pay for their expertise, right? Like,
Yep.
I know, okay, you have something that you're bringing to the table that I don't have, and I'm trusting you with that.
Yep.
So I'm looking for a partner in the sense of you're listening and hearing me, but also I want you to give me advice. I want you to be able to tell me what you think is best here, So we talked about commission in that sense. And, to be perfectly frank with you, I don't mind saying I ended up paying the 6%, but the fact that I had the ability to control that and determine that meant a lot to me.
So at any point though, and again, this is not good, bad. It's not, we're not doing the Game of Thrones, like shame, on anybody. But at any point did the agent explain to you the separation between compensation, meaning like my fee is X and you can do whatever you want to do on the other side is completely up to you, in a way that helped you better understand something that we talk a lot about, which is there is no real combined number.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, the second agent did, right? We talked a lot about that.
Okay.
And there was a lot of space for me to ask questions and kind of discuss like, okay, I'm okay with your set amount, but then what does this look like? And having the room to say, well, when you go into the negotiation with the potential buyer, like you can say, well, I'm going to, offer 2% of the commission and XYZ, or, it's part of the total package that you're negotiating. And so we talked about that in that context.
Good. Because again, I think it's important for people to understand that in the world of real estate today, consumers have the right, all compensation is negotiable, but particularly all buyer agent compensation is fully negotiable up to the point of an accepted offer.
Yeah.
And that's, again, there are so many agents out there still practicing real estate today who are, using terms like typical, customary, usual, everybody here does X, we're going to expect this, or, it's part of steering. If you don't offer this, they're not going to show your home. Or if you don't offer X, then, it's not, you're going to get less view. It's just, and it's not true, but it's, again, to no fault of the agents, they've been indoctrinated in that for so many years now based on horrible practices by the industry on the whole, but that's what they come out with. So, good to know. Okay. So we have this experience, you get it, person comes. I don't necessarily want to go into too much detail because all home sales have their own sort of caveats of like things that go on. But was there any sort of like one thing that stood out to you in the home sale process once you listed it that you're like, oh man, if I would have had it to do over again, I would have done X differently?
On the selling side of things.
On the selling side. Yeah. Just the selling side.
Yeah. I guess two things immediately come to mind. One, I'm glad that I went with the agent that I did go with, because what I didn't mention is that while that was a referral, I got 2 other referrals that I spoke with too.
Okay.
After I decided not to go with the first guy.
Mm-hmm.
So I ultimately spoke with 4 agents total, right?
Which is great, by the way.
I mean, it was a lot of work, but it happened.
Yeah.
But all of the other 3 agents were suggesting kind of a price range that felt a little low, but were telling me like, oh, this is general for the. We ended up selling my house for more than any of them wanted me to initially list it at.
Which is great.
Which is great, right?
Mm-hmm.
There were a lot of concessions and things, but that's fine. But ultimately, I was like, okay, if I had just gone with the first person and not done some due diligence in terms of exploring this a bit, I would have gotten a lot less for my house, right? So I think that was one big piece that like stood out to me was I'm glad that I listened to some of my family and friends and leaned into that exploring. The other thing that I think stands out to me, how do I say this? I think there were some easy things that I could have done before listing it that would have helped make it move a little bit faster than it ultimately did, and that I ultimately ended up doing.
Like cosmetic things to the property?
Yeah, exactly. Like, easy facelift stuff that like I ended up doing. We at one point pulled it down for a couple days, did some of that facelift stuff and put it back on. And I think it made a huge difference. And there was a part of me that was like, I had just done this at the beginning. Maybe it would have made a difference, but
was that recommended to you in the beginning?
It was one of the like, here's something to think about.
Okay.
It wasn't like you have to do this or it's never going to sell. But this agent that I went with, I think was really good about being like, here's things to consider, things to think about. It's going to cost you a little bit of money. Do you want to do it? Like, do you want to wait it out and see? So we did wait it out and see. And then I was ultimately like, okay, no, let's do that.
That's awesome.
So yeah. So I think just considering some of those pieces that, if I had thought about doing earlier, I mean, my home was on the market for about 3 months, which from what I understand in that particular demographic market, like wasn't bad.
Right. But I'm sure it felt like an eternity to you.
Felt like an eternity.
Because if I'm not mistaken, you moved.
I was going to say, yeah, because I moved. So like, there's this whole sense of like, I am over 2,000 miles away from this place. Like, I'm trusting other people to keep an eye on it. But at the end of the day, I'm liable for anything that happens on that property this entire time period, right? It definitely felt like an eternity.
I mean, yes, I want you to be a real human being, but I also want to know that real estate is your focus. Like I want to know if you're marketing yourself as an agent, tell me what you know about your market. Tell me what you know about like the overall days on, like what is the average days on market? What are the stats? How fast are homes moving in whatever zip code I'm looking at or I'm living in? Like, what is it that I, as either a buyer or seller, need to know so I can best position myself with that information? Like, if I'm looking in a super hot zip code, I'll just use the one I live in. I live in Las Vegas, 89102, some really cool neighborhoods here. Like if I want to buy a different house here, I want to know how competitive it is. I want to know what's on the market, what they think is coming on the market, how fast they think things are going to move. Or if I want to sell my house, I want to know like how fast is it going to go? I want to know how many offers are coming in, like in that market. And not just all of Las Vegas. Like all of Las Vegas is completely different. So that's irrelevant to me. Like I want stuff that is super relevant in that market, like in that zip code, in that school district, whatever it is. But it's like someone saying the Las Vegas Valley, which has 2.5 million people like that and such wildly different housing stock. That's not helpful to me.
I have a tip that I give agents all the time, which is when it comes to your marketing, the easiest way to think about it is if they can Google it, don't send it.
Yeah.
Because I don't need you to give me information that I can already find for myself. What I need is your experience. What I need is information that you have that is not readily available to me on that side, right? Those different types of pieces of things that I'm not going to be able to find or even understand. Because I think that is a huge differentiation point that develops and builds trust with people based off of I don't really have the ability to understand that nuanced element of something when it comes to that.
I care about consumers. I care about agents, great agents, really good agents who have dedicated their lives to working with people and helping them in an incredibly important and vital part of their lives. And those two groups need to better work together to have both of their needs met successfully without any external influence, fear of reprisal, or anything.